Well, welcome everybody. I've got another video with a fellow booktuber. We've got Bryan over at Bad Taste Books with us today. And I'm not sure if anyone has been over to Bryan's channel, but he's got a great channel. He covers all kinds of genres, all kinds of books. Maybe, do you want to mention anything about your channel or?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Bryan. Thanks for having me on, Ira. My channel is Bad Taste Books. It's really just pretty low production, just kind of chatting about books sort of channel. I love science fiction, horror, fantasy, crime, men's adventure. There's not really a niche to my channel. It's just whatever I'm into. So
Yeah, that's what I like about your channel is you just whatever you're in the mood for and you put it out there, and so you got a broad range. I like it.
I do. I could probably get more followers if I honed it down, but whatever.
Yeah.
Talk about what I feel like talking about.
Yep. So a while back, I did a video talking about this series that I'm doing and invited whoever wanted to join. So Bryan reached out to me and we picked the book To Your Scattered Bodies Go by Philip Jose Farmer. Oh, and you got a different cover there. I like it.
Yeah, I got this one. It's got that kind of art on both sides. I think it's the Berkeley 80s edition.
Yeah, I have all 5 books. It looks like that kind of matches some of the later books.
Yeah.
I can show those off later or whatever. But this is the 80th book I've read in the series now out of 140.
Wow, making quite the headway.
Yeah, making progress. And so this book, just real briefly, it came out in 1971 and it won the Hugo in 1972 for Best Novel. And I had read this one before, but it was a long time ago. I knew the basic premise, but when I started kind of getting into it, I forgot how kind of weird and quirky and humorous at times that it could be. But first, let's just kind of maybe get your overall impression of this one before we get into like the plot.
Yeah, so you sent me a list of books that you were like, here's a bunch you can choose from. And I looked most of them up. I knew about a lot of them. I'd read a handful of them. And I initially was like, oh, let me pick one of the more obscure books on your list. But for whatever reason, when I got to Scatter Bodies Go, like I'd heard of this one before and read the synopsis before and kind of always had it on the back of my mind as like one of the classics that I wanted to read. I just thought the initial idea and premise for it sounded great. And that's kind of what I found, is that it's one of those books where you get this big idea, this really cool initial idea, and then Philip Jose Farmer just explores that idea through the characters. There's not like a whole lot of like intricate plot stuff going on. It's just like, here's the idea, let's see what happens. And I really enjoyed it. Like you said, there's a lot of like kind of humor in there, and it's very weird, and it has tons of ideas, and it's almost like more of an adventure book in some ways. I really liked it. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I heard someone talking about Philip Jose Farmer recently, and they're like, I kind of get frustrated with him. He has these great ideas, but he sometimes goes to weird places with the ideas when he explores them. I think this kind of wraps it up. And when I read it a long time ago, I gave it 3 stars. And when I first started reading it again on this reread, I was like, man, how did I only give this 3 stars? This is so cool. And then as I read through it, I was like, okay, yeah. I kind of see why I give it 3 stars. I don't know. Maybe it's somewhere between 3 and 4 to me, but
I was also probably going to say 3.5 out of 5 for me.
I think that's right where I'm at. And we'll get into this a little bit later, but it's definitely like a setup for the bigger series, which it's 5 books. I'll go over those really quick because I have them all. The next book is The Fabulous Riverboat. Do you have any of these?
I don't. I just have the first one. I just showed it off in my recent haul. I just picked it up for this video. It was
then the dark design, this gets a little bit thicker. And then the Magic Labyrinth. And then the last one is The Gods of Riverworld. And you can see like there's a lot of weird stuff going on in here.
These almost look like fantasy covers instead of science fiction covers.
Yeah, and everybody, like it seems like it's a rite of passage or a challenge to get through all 5 books to see what happens at the end, from what I can tell. And I've always wanted to read all 5, but we can get into if we're gonna get into like the sequels later, I guess.
Sure.
But let's finally start talking about what this is about, maybe for people.
Yeah.
Do you want to start, or I can?
Yeah, I mean, I can lay it out.
Okay.
Basically, the book starts out with this guy floating in space, naked, kind of rotating. They said like a roast on a spit, and there's other bodies also floating in space. And there's a little scene there, but basically, he ends up waking up after that on this planet that is just a river that is about a mile wide. And on each side, there's plains, which are like a mile each, and then some rolling hills. And then just like really tall, impassable, strange looking mountains. And basically, all of humanity from all different time periods, like every human that's ever existed, wakes up naked, hairless on this river world. And then there's these like structures called grails, and everyone has this like thing on their arm, and they put their grail in the grail stone, and they get like stuff. And then once you're set up with this initial idea, like I said, it really just kind of explores that concept. Also, the main character is like a real person from history.
Mm-hmm.
So were a few of the other characters, which I thought was an interesting, odd choice.
Yeah, and I don't know if you caught it. I didn't at first, but the female in there, Alice, she's kind of like Alice in Wonderland, and that's
yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I didn't know, but I only know because the back of the book says on my copy it says all humanity, including Sir Richard Burton, Alice in Wonderland, and yourself. But so I had to look that up. But yeah, I guess that historical person is the basis for Alice in Wonderland's character.
Yeah, and then in the beginning, when the guy's like floating, it's like he was the only one that was awake. Everyone else was just like kind of chilling out. And so you kind of get the idea that there's something special about our main character.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, this whole mystery of what, if this is the afterlife, or if this is some other kind of experiment, or it's really intriguing, that part of it. Like you said, the idea of this is so good.
Yeah.
Once they kind of start forming little groups and tribes, and it turns into kind of an adventure, or kind of explores the pros and cons of humanity, because
absolutely
you've got all these different people from all different time periods. We even had a Neanderthal that was resurrected.
Yeah, that was interesting too. I mean, we have the Neanderthal, and then we also have the alien from the future.
Yeah.
Because an alien was on Earth when this happened, I guess. Like maybe like 13 of them, it sounds like, or somewhere around there. And then at one point also when he's at the head of the river, there's like giants, which I guess we're made to believe at some point on our planet there were giants.
Yeah, what is it, the Nephilim?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So he kind of, the idea is like, is this an endless river? What's at the beginning? What's at the end? There's a lot of cool intrigue and ideas around the overall mystery of this place. Mm-hmm. And then they kind of also find out that, like, at first they're like, what happens if we die here in the afterlife? And then that kind of gets resolved, that they basically get reincarnated or resurrected again. Mm-hmm. with all their memories. And they're like, well, and they kind of, some people go, like, if they get into a jam, they're like, I'll just commit suicide and pop up somewhere else. It's a wild concept.
The main character, I don't know if this is probably not a spoiler, but he ends up killing himself like hundreds of times just to like get to various places. It's kind of interesting. I like that kind of, little aspect.
And the book, it goes like, I think years go by as you read through the book. And at one point they kind of build this big raft, and they just start exploring upriver to see if they can find like the headwaters of it, because they're told, that's kind of part of the, the inception of this thing, or wherever they're going to find out these questions that they have. So they spend like over a year just traveling upstream, getting waylaid by different tribes along the river.
Yep. And that's, I think, I think a lot of where this book excels for me is like the mystery of where are we, who put us here, what are the inner workings of this world, like how does the Grail stone work, why is it filled with these various items. I think that's really like intriguing and really made me want to read more. I think once he gets on the boat and starts going on various, like he's kidnapped by some people and then he is meeting this Nazi, and I feel like meandered a little bit for my taste, but I mean, it's a short book. They packed a lot into like 220 pages or whatever.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and also like they had those like cylinders, these grails, and they plugged them into these rocks, and then like the person that owns the grail is the only one that can open it. And then there's like food, and sometimes later they would get clothing, but there was also this like psychedelic chewing gum.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I wonder too, like how many of these questions are going to be answered in the sequels, because, without getting too spoilery, like we get some answers to things, but it's fairly ambiguous, like how it all turns out. And I think it's kind of like a tune in next week to see what happens kind of feeling.
Yeah, it was definitely a setup for, I don't know if he knew how many books he was going to write from the beginning. I didn't look that up, but I mean, when you finish this book, you definitely know it was like a setup for the second book, at least.
Yeah. Well, I haven't looked into it too much, but there's a lot of, I've heard, didn't he like write this to be serialized, and then it got lost, and he like wrote another copy and then like lost that one, and then someone found it in like a garage in the 80s and like republished the original version. There's like a weird storied history to this book being published.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so like this, even like this chewing gum they get, it's almost like it's pushing humanity almost into like conflict or tempting them with addiction. There's a lot of ideas that come up with the characters that is pretty interesting. Is definitely, I think I'm on the lines with you where the ideas carried the book, and some of the meandering in the middle were pretty interesting. There was like a lot of looks at society and how these little tribes are building up around each other and stuff. It was pretty fascinating overall. But
you could look at like, it's almost like we were set up with this bizarre little utopia, and you can see how just quickly humans take advantage of it and like ruin it because I mean, like you said, the grails giving food and stuff, like within a week we've developed like grail slavery, where you just like keep a person a slave and like steal their stuff. And like it's interesting to see how when humanity is transported into a completely different environment, we still have all the same issues and problems. So I thought a lot of how they explored that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, and even like right off the bat in the very beginning, like everybody wakes up, like you said, naked and hairless, and no one knows what's going on. And like the first night, they don't even know that these grails will give them food. And the first night is like mass chaos. There's people fighting each other. There's all kinds of assaults. There's sexual assaults on people. There's humanity at its worst, and then you get parts where humanity is, trying to do good. So it's definitely exploring a lot of those ideas in this one.
Yep. Yeah, I do, have questions for like why some of the things were the way that they are, because he gives us some like strange details and never really gives us answers. Like everyone shows up naked and hairless, but then they start growing hair on their heads. But like men never grow facial hair ever again. And it's just like weird details like this that you're like, okay, but why?
Yeah. And then everybody kind of gets resurrected at around the age 25 or 30, somewhere in there. But if you were a child when you were killed on Earth, then I think the minimum age was like 5 or something. And so you get resurrected at age 5, and then you grow up till you're 25 or whatever, and then you stop aging again.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it's very bizarre. Yeah, there's so much intrigue that, I mean, I am very tempted to at least read the next book in this series. I've always wanted to read the whole series. We'll see how far I can get, or at least space them out.
I felt the same way. As I'm like, I kind of want to read the next one, but I don't know. Like, I like this. I feel like initially the book felt like almost like a Twilight Zone episode to me. It had that kind of vibe. But then it does get a little like out there in parts, maybe even a little silly. I know Nick from the Book Graveyard always talks about how he doesn't like Philip Jose Farmer. And I asked him one time, like, what book did you read that made you? And he said it was The Fabulous Riverboat. He said he hated it. But I'm like, maybe it's because you read that without reading the first one.
Oh, yeah, maybe if he read it out of order, that might be
yeah
challenge. Yeah, I think, you know what, he has this huge following. I think people either love him or are kind of on the fence. I don't know. I mean, I guess some people do hate his writing, but he had this like big following. I think there's still like a fan website that is fairly active with a bunch of people talking about him and all of his works. And, you know, he's wrote many series and a bunch of other weird books. And I think they all kind of have some weirdness to him.
Yeah.
His own special brand of weirdness.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mind it. I like a little weird, but it's funny. I mean, yeah, he describes the alien as having like three like lumpy testicles or something. There's like a whole description about that. And then in the like towards the end, there, well, I don't know if you want to get into. He finds like these ethicals, who like there's many theories about why this world is in existence, and he analyzes that through like priests being, you know, just horror stricken that they've got here and it's not heaven, it's not what they've preached to people, and some of them are kind of like running around in shame, and then like new religions are starting up, and then there's these ethicals, people who they believe might be working for some you know,
the creators or whatever you want to call them.
Who knows? But yeah, and then he talks about these ethicals later, and they do this hand motion, and they're just like touch their fingers to their like their heart and their testicles and their face or something, like when they say something. He's just got these weird details in there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of a hard book to spoil. I don't think we have to spoil this one because like we talked about, a lot doesn't get resolved. There's still a lot of mystery. There is a scene that kind of happens towards the end where our main character does get some information, but then like once again, you find out either he's special or someone's helping him out somewhere behind the scenes or something, because things that aren't supposed to happen to everybody happen to him in a way. So you definitely can tell that this main character is like the chosen one almost in a way in this weird, wild world.
Yeah, for sure.
So I don't know, anything else you want to talk about this one, or?
It's like so much happened, but it's also just very, you know, nothing happened. It's hard to I find it hard to like talk about this one in a, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, just the basic idea and setup is just, you know, trying to figure this mystery out. But there is so many weird things. Like I almost forgot about the weird hand gestures that these people had, and you know, there was also like as they go up and down this river that's possibly endless or whatever. There's like areas that are dominated by a certain time period or ethical or ethnical race or something. But it's always mixed with other people from different time periods and ethnicities and stuff. And that's another question. It's like, why did they group these people up? Was it to build up some like tribalism in certain areas, or there's just so many different things going on. hardly any of it gets answered,
Yeah.
and it's definitely a setup for the rest of the series.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's
Yeah.
other people who believe that like this is your chance now to like be a good human, and then once you do, you will leave Riverworld and go somewhere else.
Yeah.
There's
Like,
just a lot, and I kind of like the ambiguity in that sense, in that, at the end you don't know, like, is it aliens? Is it God? Is it whatever? I guess we could read and find out, but they probably just give you an answer in the last book, and you're like, oh, okay. I don't know.
yeah, I think like the next book is about the same length. I think I could easily read that. Then they start getting bigger, and I think if I got hung up at that point and just couldn't get through those books, I'd probably just find a video or read the Wikipedia or something and find out what happens.
Just get your answer. Just cheat a little.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if I'm going to read the next one or not, but if so, it's not going to be immediately. I don't know, wait a little bit.
Yeah. I think I might try. It's short enough. I might try to read it pretty soon and see if I'm kind of one that if I can get some momentum, I'll read through a whole series pretty quick. But if I drag my feet and wait months or a year, then I feel like I have to go back and reread.
Yeah, I can see that. Sure. I try to wait at least a little bit, read some stuff in between, or I get kind of burnt out on a series.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever read. I did the last 3 books in the Dark Tower. I read those all back to back, I think.
Well, that's a good series. I read that one.
Yeah, they came out kind of all at the same time, and I'd been waiting forever for those, so I binged those.
Nice. Very cool.
All right. Well, any other things you want to mention about like your channel? You got any videos? I liked your really liked your kind of year-end wrap up. You went through, I think, all of your books that you read, right?
Yeah. Every one of them. Try to rank them from worst to best. I don't know. My channel just, I don't plan things too much. Just whatever video I feel like popping up. So if you want to hang out and listen to me talking to books, then come on over. But yeah, nothing in particular coming up.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming on. We'll have to do some other collaboration maybe in the future again. Maybe read some horror or something else.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe get you to read one of these like weird science fiction books I pick up from like the 80s that nobody talks about. Still be in your wheelhouse, but maybe something a little more less known.
Yeah, and you did that one video a while back where you kind of used a random number generator to go through your stacks of books. Yep. And I love that idea. I kind of started doing a thing where my wife is going through and randomly picking out a book.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah, she's picking out some things that I'd eventually read, but like they were definitely not high on my reading list.
Yeah,
but it's always kind of fun to throw that random aspect in.
Well, it's kind of my favorite thing is reading books that like nobody else is talking about. Just because I don't know, it just interests me. They're like these little lost hidden gems, hopefully.
Yeah. And with this series that I'm doing, like they are a lot of really well known. I mean, there are some obscure ones on this list that Easton Press put together, but most of them are like Hugo winners or classics. And it's fun. You can tell why these books won awards, and there's a lot of other people talking about them, but some of my favorite reads and videos are just pulling these really obscure ones out. And I think I find some pretty cheap books around here, but when I see your book hauls and they're selling them for like a nickel.
I know. Yeah. That's just this one shop that has a bargain section, and they always have sci-fi books in the bargain section. So I just go straight there and just grab what I can.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah. No, it's good.
Yeah, but, it's almost like they're giving them away. So at least there's people that are going to hang on to them and actually read them. So
that's right. I'm rescuing them.
Yeah, rescuing them.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. Like, I mentioned before, I think, your channel is the one that I kind of like got the idea, like I want to make a booktube channel was from, watching yours. So it's kind of surreal being on your channel. So I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for coming on, and thanks for the kind words. And yeah, we're just all people that love books, and
Yeah, it's cool. Fun
it's
community to be part of.
it's good to talk to you about this one. And yeah, like I said, we'll find another book to do in the future. So,
Sounds good. Appreciate it.
all right, thanks.